Welcome, everyone. Thanks for staying around, and I know it's getting later in the afternoon. So I'm going to be talking about the service delivery review. So you may know this, you may use it already. So we're going to also use the Slido thing in the middle of the presentation. So if you guys, I won't require you to check in and check out, the check in and check out protocol. You can use your phones during the talk. Okay, so many of you have seen this before. This is probably not too unfamiliar. Yeah, what is that? What is this thing? It is a strange manifesto. Does anybody have a favorite part of the manifesto? Like your go-to phrase? Over. Over. Okay, good. Yeah, that's good.
Maximize the amount of work not done.
Okay, all right. The simplicity principle. I like that. Very esoteric, but very, very helpful. Any other favorites? The individuals, the humanizing part of it. Good. So this is actually my favorite part. We are uncovering better ways. So this is the very first part of it. The reason I like it so much is because it really implies an active, adaptive, dynamic sort of stance toward the manifesto. So the idea is that this is not meant to just be something that just is codified in time, but really it's a way to help us keep thinking about improving. And when I see that phrase, we are uncovering better ways of doing things, I mentally translate that to sense and respond. So in order for us to uncover better ways, we need to be able to sense what those better ways might be and respond in order to improve and to change. So that's kind of my mental model when I look at that phrase, that first part of the manifesto. It also helps us be open to new things. So the service delivery review, for example, it was not part of the original thinking behind the manifesto as far as I understand, but it's something that's come to us more recently, or come to me more recently. And so the idea is that we need to think about agility as being a dynamic, always moving, hopefully moving forward kind of a thing, being open to those better ways of doing things. So this leads us to thinking about the idea of being continuously fit, not physically fit, but physically or continuously fit for purpose. So by sensing and responding always, we're also continuously being able to adapt ourselves, our companies, our businesses, our organizations to becoming fit for their purpose. Once we become fit for the purpose, because we live in a dynamic, changing environment, we always have to be sensing and responding because we're not always going to be fit for the purpose. Okay, so we are in Seattle. This happens to be one particular coffee chain, but I'm not trying to advocate for one. So if you're able to log into the Slido app, you can do this either by yourself or with a friend. So the question I'm going to pose to you, it should be on the thing, but it's what do you value about the experience of buying coffee? All right, so okay, people have already started logging in. Very nice. Okay, so take like 30 seconds. You can, again, have a conversation with your neighbor. You can do it by yourself. You can submit multiple ideas. What do you value about the experience of buying coffee, whether it's Starbucks or what else do we have out here? Seattle's best coffee. You name it. All right. What do you value about the experience? And feel free to add multiple things if you like. All right. Okay, all right. So take another 5 seconds, get your last votes in. Okay, and I think there's a couple that were like, I think there was correctness. The correctness of the spelling wasn't correct, but there's a couple correctness. Okay, so great. So how many of these things relate to product quality or product attributes? Let's see, we got caffeine. Okay, quality, the taste. Okay, good. Smell is on there. All right. Okay, quality of the product. Okay, good. All right. How many relate to the actual service delivery? Speed, the biggest. So the word cloud speed had the biggest. Good. Speed, ease. Okay. Good. Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi. It's not an attribute of the coffee itself. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for participating in that. I'm going to actually move to another one. So, what kind of business is Starbucks? I've constrained your choices here, so you must answer one of these 4 things. All right, we got about, okay. Okay, so it seems like we have at least a sizable majority of people think that they're in the business of both service and product. Right? So I don't know what kind of business you're in. If you deliver intangible goods in the form of a software product, you probably are doing a product, but also the way that you deliver that product means that you're in a service business as well. So, okay, very good. Thank you. Go ahead and you can put your last votes in there if you want. I don't know that you're going to change the outcome, but okay, great. All right. So, okay, so this is an old book actually, written in 1973. So Daniel Bell, he predicted the coming service sector. So the idea that in the post-industrial age, most businesses would become service businesses rather than product businesses. And sure enough, as you might expect, that's actually come to fruition. So most developed world countries now have more service sector workers than product sector workers. So it's important to think about the idea that we are living in a service economy. Even though we're producing products, either physical products like Starbucks or intangible products like software, we're still living in this environment. Even the experience of going to Starbucks, going to get coffee, it's both a product and a service experience. You're getting an experience overall. So this is a quote from Jeff Cessna. And again, this theme about listening and responding, sense and responding. Service providers must make promises about listening and responding as much as making and delivering. Right? And further, they have to be the right promises. We have to understand what those are. We also need to be able to understand how do we get that feedback. So if I were working for Starbucks, we obviously just polled you all to say what you valued about what they do. You valued as much about their service as their product. You probably saw Andy's either lightning talk or his talk today. So the Kanban lens. So this is a way for us to see our organizations as a network of interconnected services. So again, thinking about knowledge work as a service is a really key part of understanding why we want to have a service delivery review. Okay, so my organization, we do technology consulting, we do delivery work. So we have organizational departments, groups and roles of people. So we have designer type people who do UX, UI design. Typically they're doing it for our clients as part of a delivery team or consulting team. But we also have our internal needs. So I was actually working with a small group internally in our organization, and we had a presentation to make to some of our C-level people, right? So we need the presentation content is important, but it needed to look nice. And so as you might expect from my limited competency in UI design, it took me like 3 days to figure out how to gray out the name of the person. So I'm at what you might call a conscious incompetence level of UI design. So we need to have someone pretty it up. Has anybody ever had to do that before? You have a presentation, you ship it to someone, and you say, could you make this look nice for me? Okay, so we had this thing. Okay, so the question was, this is a representative from that group, is there any due date? Okay, so we don't know these people. They work in our organization. Our organization's 5,000 people, so how would you respond to this? You need it, and it's more of like a cost of delay of standard urgency. Okay, but I don't have any visibility into what's going on in their part of the organization. How would you answer this? Maybe you've answered this question yourself in reality. Yesterday? Okay. Okay, all right. They probably wouldn't really care for that, but yeah, okay, yesterday, that's an option. Would you say, yes, there's a due date, and maybe make up in your mind some reasonable time, a week from now or 2 weeks from now? Okay. Well, here's what happened. So sorry for the late reply. I send this over, and so can work on it. She had other projects to work on this week. Okay, we need to line this up next week. So now it's become a fixed date cost of delay. So now we actually have this meeting planned, and we need to, if the timing works out, we're going to use that version. Okay, the response then is, well, she can work on it early next week, and she's pretty fast. Okay, pretty fast. Pretty fast, you know, like pretty fast. Fast is good. Okay, so speed. You all said speed was one of the things you valued in your experience getting coffee, right? What kind of speed? Like an hour? If you get your coffee in an hour, is that acceptable? No? It might be cold. That was another, right? Okay, so the idea of fast or speed is a relative concept, and we need to be specific about that. We need to be able to quantify those kind of things. So this was not necessarily a satisfactory experience, through no fault of this part of our organization, mind you, but it's because we didn't have visibility into that. We didn't have an understanding of quantifiable service delivery aspects. So this is the problem. So we typically don't have a way of seeing, even if we do see our organization as a series of networked or interacting services, we need to be able to measure those things so that when we make these promises to our clients and internally to ourselves, we have an understanding of what we can expect. Right? So one of the problems is this. So in the absence of any kind of quantitative feedback, we're going to always have these arbitrary due dates and artificial time boxes, boundaries. Those are always going to be with us because we don't have any trust in the system. We don't have any feedback about the service quality or the performance of our service. Anybody use these kind of charts to, sorry, and by the way, this is a disclaimer. None of these has been approved by Cole from her talk yesterday. None of these have been refactored into proper visual stories. So this is the red, amber, green chart, health chart, trending. Okay, is this giving us any kind of feedback about our service delivery? A little bit. Okay, like what's that? Too many. Okay, we'll assume for the moment we have the right amount of capacity meeting demand. Is this actionable? Is this what can we do from this? We see it's a bunch of green. There's some yellow and amber and red. It's not quantifiable though. We can't act. Where are we going to improve here? Okay. Another problem is that our people doing the delivery, really lack a sense of goals. I've worked with a lot of teams who are hard workers, who are highly functioning, highly competent, and yet they get into situations where the client is dissatisfied with what they're doing. And it comes as a surprise to them. So if we wait too long to learn about the quality of our service delivery, we're going to lose our customers, right? So we need to shorten that feedback loop. Our employees, our people working on things, need to be able to have a sense of what accomplishment means. How do we get better? Okay, so what happens is, most of you are working in knowledge work and intangible goods, there's these two dimensions of our organization. So one is the viewpoint, so the team or internal viewpoint, and our customer's viewpoint. The other dimension is the component. So we already talked about most of us are in both service and product business. So we have feedback needs in all of these areas. So if you think about from the team's perspective, so we have service and product. So asking the question, is our team healthy? The people doing the work? Is our product healthy? Is it healthy? Is it meeting standards? Is it maintainable, for example? And then also from the customer standpoint. So the customer doesn't care so much about is our team healthy. So if you think about the restaurant metaphor, if you go to a restaurant, do you care if the workers are happy? The kitchen staff, for example? Okay, maybe you're a good human, so you care. All right, so okay, we can assume that we care at some level. But in terms of why you've chosen them, do you choose your restaurant, whether it's a fast food restaurant or a nice sit-down restaurant? Do you choose it because you know how happy the people are working inside the restaurant? No, not really. You care about these things. You care about, is the service delivery fit for its purpose? Do I get my food? Do I get served? Do I get seated in a timely fashion? When people say you have to wait 20 minutes, is it really truly 20 minutes? And then, of course, is the product fit for its purpose? Is the food good? Is it tasty? Is the wine service appropriate? Those things are the things you care about. The other things, is the product healthy? Well, you probably care about like the food standards, but you don't really know about what's the proper setting on the ovens and cooking temperature. You don't really care about that sort of stuff. You care, is it going to make me sick? But that's is the product fit for its purpose. So, okay, this might be a little bit of a review for those of you who do this sort of thing on a regular basis. What's the feedback loop we have for the service from the team's perspective? So is our team healthy? What kind of feedback loop? Do we have a feedback loop for that to understand whether our team is healthy? Retrospective? Okay, very good. All right. It's not too late in the day. Okay. All right, good. Okay. Let's move down then. Okay. This is a little bit tougher. From the team's perspective, do we have any kind of feedback loops to understand whether our product is healthy? Product is internal health of the product. What was it? Sprint review. Okay. What kind of questions do you ask at the sprint review? Is it what you expected? Okay, from the customer standpoint or from the team delivering? Okay, internal team. Okay. Other things? Stand up. Okay. Automation. Okay, good. Yeah, automation gives us some feedback there. Good. Okay. Right. So these are, again, from an internal team perspective. And again, a lot of people talk about this. Have we built the thing right, as opposed to have we built the right thing? The customer cares primarily about the latter. Okay, performance monitors, code metrics, automation, good. Okay, sprint review stuff, stand up, we can discuss some of these things too. Okay, let's moving back around here. Customer perspective on the product. Have we built the right product? Do we have a feedback loop for this? Sprint review. Showcase, okay. Yeah, demo, okay. Okay, cool. All right, yes. Demo. Actually, are we making money? That's a pretty good feedback loop. Okay, good. All right, so the last one there. Do we have a feedback loop for this? The customer's perspective on our service delivery. Is our service delivery fit for purpose? NPS, Net Promoter Score, okay. A fit for purpose survey. All right, this man's you're bringing the IQ back up. All right, that's good. Okay, all right, we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, some customer surveys. All right, good. So yeah, so in terms of actual regular cadences of feedback loops, you might have like a regular NPS thing you do or fitness surveys. But in general, most of the teams I've worked with, organizations I've worked with, don't have a regular recurring way to get this kind of information. So that's why I proposed the service delivery review fits into this category. So, you've heard the term, the idea, the principle. Introduce feedback loops. Okay, so I like this drawing because it actually puts the service delivery right at the heart of everything. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it really does catalyze the kind of improvement thinking that we need to get at from understanding our service. So if we live in a world where service is increasingly an important thing for us, we need to be able to sense and respond the quality of our service. We need to know what our customers value about our service in the first place. Okay, so this is my definition. It's a bit of an adaptation from David's definition. A regular quantitatively oriented discussion between a customer and a delivery team about the fitness for purpose of its service delivery. So the boldface words really, for me, are the key here. So it's really from a customer standpoint. And so when we think about fitness, first of all, fitness can only be defined in the eyes of the customer. Right? When you go to a restaurant, the restaurant isn't the one telling you what their wait time is fit for your purpose. You're the one as a customer who decides based on your needs, and you could be going to a fast food restaurant, in which case speed, the tolerance for speed is much less than the tolerance for speed at a nice sit-down restaurant. You might actually have a minimum tolerance that you don't want to be served too quickly at a nice restaurant, because then you kind of worry about, is this food prepared fresh for me, or has it been sitting back there? So you have different tolerances based on your needs, but it's always the customer who decides that. Okay, and again, the idea is that we want to get as quantitative as possible about understanding these things. Okay, and this is really the core question we're answering at the service delivery review. So some possible topics. These you're not required to use all these. These are things that I've done with teams and organizations. Again, finding out first what makes this service fit for its purpose. What do you value about our team's delivery? Is it predictability? Well, let's measure that. How do we measure that? Is it speed? Is it throughput? Is it any of these other things? Is there responsiveness when something goes awry? So how quickly do we treat items that are urgent? Okay. Mentioned the idea of a fit for purpose box score. Okay. And then ultimately understanding in a proactive way, what are the obstacles that stand in the way of our improving our service delivery? Oops. Okay, so then here's some example actual metrics then. So what's the distribution of our lead time or our delivery time? What's our throughput? What's our performance on due date items? Are we missing deadlines? These are the things that most customers, most people care about. Right? So it's interesting. I was calling Delta Airlines the other day trying to make a reservation. And they have a nice feature, actually. It's we'll call you back, so you don't have to wait on the line. And so they said, we'll call you back in 20 to 35 minutes. All right, well, I could deal with that. I could plan around that. But they set up an expectation for me then that I expected them to deliver the call back in that time. And they did. So that was a satisfying experience. So it was, again, the idea of them understanding what made their service acceptable or satisfying to me, and then delivering on that promise. Okay, so delivery time scatterplot. This is a time-based view of our delivery times. So as we go forward in time, we're seeing how long each particular work item, whether it's a ticket, a story, a task, whatever you want to use as your work item, how long it takes to deliver this. So we can see over time, is this acceptable to our customer? No, Brad's saying no. It depends, right? It depends. Maybe Brad's got higher expectations for the people he hires. But this allows us then to toggle and change the type of delivery that we provide for people. It's kind of like when you order something on Amazon and you choose the shipping speed. You can choose like the 2-day shipping, or they've actually created the Prime option for you, right? So they've identified, they've sensed and responded to that market need that people actually value this thing. And so similarly, we might have different teams who are the slow train, so to speak, you get regular service, and then teams that are really highly geared toward delivering much faster, the Brads of the world. You need much faster, higher speed service. So this gives us an opportunity to understand what's going on in the marketplace and in the environment around us. And this goes back to the idea of continuously becoming fit for the purpose, so that we don't become like dinosaurs and the organizations of the world that have suddenly found that they're no longer fit for the purpose. Okay, another option, another thing we can look at is I like this. This is interesting. My background is in QA, so the question of how do you measure quality? How do you think about, is it escape defects? Is it bugs, density, all that stuff? It's always been kind of a weird thing to try to pin down. I really like this because it provides both a view onto quality, but also the service delivery quality aspect. So this is basically saying how much or what percentage of our work that we're delivering is actually value-added work as opposed to failure demand. So we might then set a threshold with our customer to say, what makes this team fit for its purpose? Is it delivering something at the 75th percentage point we're delivering 75% value-added items for you on a regular basis? And then we can see when it's going up and down. But that gives us at least a quantitative way to understand, is this team fit for its purpose? Well, you'd like something that's higher. Oh, well, that might cost more. Or you're accepting something that's less in terms of this. Well, that we might charge you less for that. Probabilistic forecasting. This is another way for most people. Think of predictability as something that's important to them. When you go to Starbucks, when you order your coffee, when I expect back my call from Delta Airlines, I expect it to be a predictable kind of a situation. So this allows us to have a view onto our predictability and gives us a better sense of forecasting. So this is nice. This particular tool gives us, in business terms, a nice calendar that says we have very low expectation that we'll be able to deliver it on this date, but we have fairly good expectation and confidence that we'll be able to deliver it on this date forward. So this is a very helpful way to think about management and a manager's role in this new service-based economy. So this comes from a book that's a bit older, actually, but I think it's still appropriate here, so from the 5th discipline. So the idea of considering alternative future paths, which is essentially what this probabilistic forecast does. So rather than a straight line average-based forecast, we're going to hit, based on our average, we're going to draw a straight line average out into the future. That has a sense of a deterministic forecast. We're going to hit it on that date. This gives us a sense that there's different probabilities at different points in time. And we always have to think about that when we're thinking about the future. But the idea here is, again, it offsets the tendency for managers to implicitly assume a single future and become, again, I've boldfaced these words here, more predictive, or perceptive, rather, of changes in the business environment and more responsive to those changes. So if we go back here, then we can say, well, based on this forecast, we can be proactive in managing toward these things. We can make changes in our service delivery that are more in line with our service expectations from our customers' point of view. So when I get teams started with this, I generally give them this. It's kind of a canvas or just like a little prototype for them to have the conversation. Say, well, what are the services you provide? What are the fitness criteria metrics? How do you measure whether those things are fit for the purpose? And then there are things we bring into the review on the inputs, and then things that we come out from the review with on the outputs. So this will differ based on your organizations, your teams, your service needs, what your customer values about those things. But this is a way to kind of get started. And this is all I'll post the slides and you'll be able to have these online. Okay, so here's an example. This is a team that started out doing this. They have like a regular review, a demo kind of a thing, but they started infusing more service delivery oriented types of things into this. So you can see customer satisfaction, feedback from the customer is starting to enter in here, and then some of their forecasting. So you still have the red, amber, green kind of stuff, but this is at least getting more toward the customer's concern. So typically, teams even have, I've seen kind of a proto service delivery pattern, which is teams doing metrics-oriented retrospectives, where they bring metrics in. Okay, that's great, but really, this is meant to help us orient ourselves toward the customer's standpoint, not the team's internal standpoint. Here's an example. This is actually this is for my personal Kanban. So I do personal Kanban, and I do my own service delivery review by myself every 2 weeks. Yes, I'm that geeky. So I've tried to identify my stakeholders, principally my wife, and what makes my service fit for the purpose that she's expecting of me. So it typically comes in the form of keeping my promises in terms of deadline-oriented items. But it's interesting. So this is a way to proactively manage things, again, toward our customers' expectations. So this is a chart called the Aging Work in Progress chart. And this is basically, if you think about the work stages across the Kanban flow, and these can be any kind of stages. But basically, it's looking at past performance of our actual work and saying, based on the past performance, each of these dots, if you can see the blue dots, the chance of them being late based on where they are in the system. So these things are almost finished. We'll start here in the testing. Right? So they're in that yellow area, so the 70th to 85th percentile. The things that are above that, those things are already then going to be delivered past that 85th percentile expectation. So this gives us a proactive way to manage those things before they're done. So one of the problems with looking at past data is that you can't do anything about it. But this allows us to do some proactive management toward those things. This thing here, in the analysis active, that thing's already on the 70th percentile for delivery, and it's just started. So that should give us a concern about what to do with that thing. Okay, mentioned fitness for purpose card. So this is something. This is basically a template that I made available. You can download it. You can customize it yourself. This link is available for you. So this is David and Alexi actually talk about this in their book, and this is a way for you to do that kind of customer-focused assessment to say, what do you value about our service, and then how well do we fulfill your expectations for those things. This is really helpful. Quantitative, in a sense. It's a kind of combination of qualitative and quantitative. But it gets you in touch with your customer and asking the question, what do you value about our service? This is vitally important. So how does this fit into the broader scheme of things? So typically we think of the service delivery review as a single Kanban, or a single team, a single service. And then where those services are interconnected or coordinated with other services, then we assess those things at an operations review. So this is interesting. This is not necessarily from software delivery. Or, this actually comes from the Customer Management Institute. These are just general concerns that people have and expectations people have for service delivery. So accessibility, the promptness, do what I ask promptly, tell me what to expect. So for example, when I go to my mechanic, I know nothing about cars, but when I go to my mechanic, whom I trust, and he tells me that it's going to take 2 weeks to order the parts and install things, and it's going to be these many $100 to fix, I don't know, I have no idea. But when he tells me that, then I expect that to actually be the case. It's just like when we interact with our customers and our stakeholders when we deliver software. Meeting your commitments and keeping your promises. Again, we need to be able to sense what's important. I mentioned I've worked with teams that are really hardworking, really competent teams, and yet they get a contract that's taken away from them and find out their customer was dissatisfied. It's because they didn't have any way to sense and respond to the issues. The product they were developing was awesome. Had the right technology, it was really cool, great usability, but the way in which the team was delivering was not satisfying. And so being able to have that ability to sense and respond is something that the service delivery review can do for you. Okay, so this is actually an enlightening thing for me. The idea that delighting customers, we hear about that all the time. Hey, delight your customers. But that actually doesn't appear to build loyalty. It's reducing their effort, essentially doing the things you say you're going to do. That's the thing that's going to build loyalty. And again, if I think back to my experience with Delta, that actually, when they call me back, when they say they're going to, they're not delighting me. They're not giving me like an upgrade. I mean, I'd like that. But it's really them just doing the basic things, but it requires them to understand what I value. Okay, so some final benefits, just summarizing here. So I mentioned earlier, it really requires us, it forces us to focus on our customers and understand why they've chosen us. So this is interesting. You can do this with your customers that have signed you on, but also, and I know my organization does this too, when we lose a deal, we ask, what did we do? What did we not do? So why did you not choose us? So it's important because this is getting us to the question about how can we become fit for our purpose. From an internal perspective, it sets that clear expectation of standards and achievement. Teams I've worked with, they They go through the motions of retrospectives a lot of times. They don't really know what to do. They don't really know. I mean, we're working together. We're all happy. But we really don't know how to improve toward what the customer is expecting of us. OK. And the idea of building customer trust and loyalty. And in the case, again, of my personal Kanban and my chief stakeholder, my wife, it actually can improve your relationship. So this is a few months ago. My wife had a couple to-do items for me. And she called me over and said, now, I need you to be honest with me. Are you able to do these things today? And I didn't lie. Actually, thankfully, I had started collecting data on myself and tracking how long it takes me to do things and if I'm able to deliver to my deadline items. And I was able to look my wife in the eye and honestly tell her that I had a 93% chance of delivering those items today. That was several months ago. I've continued to do this service delivery review, and I'm happy to report to you today that I've increased my deadline delivery expectation to 95. Thank you. Thank you. So my wife's just as happy as you are, actually. So for me to be fit for her purpose, she would obviously want that to be 100, probably. But 95% is pretty good, especially relative to what I used to be. So the idea, though, is that I was able to bootstrap myself into understanding what makes me fit for my purpose and have regular ongoing reviews of my service delivery. How well am I doing delivering the service that I've been hired for? So it can hopefully help your relationships too. OK, so tomorrow or the next week, here's what I would encourage or invite you to do. Identify and involve your customer. Ask the fitness question. Why have you chosen us? It's really a very simple question. It's very enlightening too. What do you value in what we do for you? Discover your services if you don't already know them, and establish your service delivery expectations with your customer. You probably will have the wrong ones to begin with, but by doing this every 2 weeks, every month if you need to, you'll be able to progressively understand and adapt. And your customer might say, actually, 90% on-time accuracy that's probably sufficient. Or you can say, well, in order for us to get to a next level, that's going to require some changes in the team or changes in technology. Are you willing to pay for that? And so we can start quantifying those improvements. Keep doing other useful feedback loops. If you want to integrate these things, a lot of times the same type of people are involved. And then I know Andy Carmichael in the past has talked about the idea of fitness for purpose and becoming more fit for your purpose as a way to measure your agile adoption or how agile you are, right? So agile is not about complying to practices, as we've learned this week, but it's about becoming more fit for purpose. And so if we think about using the service delivery review to get to sense and respond to those questions, we can become progressively more fit for that purpose. And this allows us to say, is our agile adoption working for us? That should really be the goal. The whole idea of survivability. Businesses and organizations are around so that they can continue to be around. This allows us to do that. Again, this comes from Alexi and David's book. The tighter you make your feedback loops, the greater agility you can exhibit as a business, the faster you can sense and respond. Some references. Again, I'll have these posted for you. Thank you. It's been great spending the afternoon with you, and hopefully you've been able to learn something at least for yourself, if not for your organization. So thank you.